Every Thursday night, both Nora and Mark happily start going to small group Bible study because they both love to know about God. After an interesting discussion about atheists, Mark wanted to read Dawkins' book called The God Delusion. Mark didn't know much about the existence of God, though, and Nora advised Mark to read William Lane Craig's Does God Exist as he reads Dawkins' book. Come to find out, Mark didn't take Nora's advice, and Mark bought into Dawkins' book because of its so-called proof. Now Mark no longer claims to believe in God at all, and that science is the best answer for life, existence, reason, and intellect. Don't be crazy like Mark. Understand all the views before you make your final decision. You can be intellectual and still believe in God. It just doesn't make sense that people today don't think Christians can be smart. You can be intellectual and still believe in God. The big question is this: is it more reasonable to believe that God does or does not exist? Let's find out. Have you ever wondered why the universe is here? Well, let me tell you, now is the best time to figure out why. One of the world's leading apologists, William Lane Craig, believes the most reasonable answer is that God almost certainly does exist. In his book, Does God Exist?, he presents the 5 main philosophical arguments for the existence of God. The other arguments are valid, but this one argument is the most compelling of the 5. I'm going to tell you about the cosmological view, and please don't let the word cosmological scare you. It just has to do with the beginnings of the universe. It's not a big deal. It has 4 big ideas. Big idea number 1, everything that begins to exist has an explanation for its existence. Big idea number 2, if the universe has an explanation for its existence, that explanation is God. Big idea number 3, the universe does exist. And big idea number 4, the explanation of the existence of the universe is God. Let's make this simple. Nobody ever disagrees over the third idea. And if numbers 1 through 3 are true, then logically number 4 has to be true. That means we only need to note if numbers 1 and 2 are more reasonable to factually believe than disbelieve. Yes, we can believe the facts of philosophy and theology just like others believe in the facts of science. Both atheists and theists have facts pointing to their conclusions. It just comes down to which side is more reasonable. Let's examine big idea number 1. Everything that begins to exist has an explanation for its existence. Now imagine for me, Devin and Brandon go walking on a mountain road, and Brandon freaks out when he sees a beautiful, finely tuned, and extremely detailed planet floating in the woods. Brandon naturally wonders, how did this get here? Brandon goes to Devin, who says, "Don't worry about it. There's no reason or explanation for it. Stop wasting your time. Until we know all the scientific facts, there's just no point. It just is." Brandon looks at Devin like he's an idiot, because it would be flippin' strange for Devin to say something like that. What if the planet was as large as the Earth, or the whole freaking universe? Something randomly placed and designed like that requires an explanation. Some people question this by saying, what about God? Doesn't he need an explanation? And if God doesn't need an explanation, then why does the universe? So you must understand the difference between things that exist necessarily and things that exist contingently. Things that exist necessarily exist by their own nature. Basically, it's impossible for them not to exist. Many mathematicians believe numbers exist necessarily. On the other hand, there are things that exist contingently, which means they are caused to exist. These things don't have to exist, they only exist because something else caused them to exist. Flip, if Donald Trump hadn't run for president, there would be no cause to make an interesting election. The universe does exist in its physical nature, so logically it exists contingently. That means it is logical to ask, why does it exist? What made it exist? The only adequate answer for the existence of a contingent universe is that its existence rests upon a non-contingent being. The universe exists on something that exists necessarily, something that had no beginning, something that would exist on its own nature. This would be something that was uncaused, which caused everything to be. The second big idea says, if the universe has an explanation for its existence, that explanation is God. Again, the big question is it more reasonable to call God the explanation of the universe? Let's define universe. The universe is all space and time, which includes all matter and energy. The second law of thermodynamics points us to believe that the universe, megaverse, black hole, or whatever the heck you want to call it, all of those things had a definite beginning. And sorry, Dawkins, it really doesn't matter which one. Even different scientific laws had to come from somewhere. It logically follows that if the universe has a cause, that cause cannot be part of the universe. The uncaused cause must be non-physical and immaterial beyond space and time. Let's say it plain and simple. God seems to be the most reasonable answer. The cosmological argument shows that the explanation of the universe can only be found in the existence of God. And I hear these common refutations for the cosmological argument that don't make much sense. It goes like this. People say, what's the explanation for God's existence? Why did God even create anything or people at all? What's in it for him? And it's like they think asking questions like this just disproves the argument, and it doesn't. Who are you to even ask God questions? Who are you to question God? We are just mere men. We can't freaking understand a being like God unless he allows us to. And regarding this so-called God delusion, well, Craig shows Dawkins has faith just like a theist. Look at his sixth summary point in the God delusion. He has faith in science that it will pull him through and eventually come up with the answers. Well, in my lifetime, I'm not willing to risk waiting for an answer that will probably never come, or waiting for some crazy illogical answer that they suppose they have now. For me to change, atheists are going to have to show me why it is more reasonable to believe that a God or higher being of any sort does not exist. Because who else or what else could have brought everything into existence? Because it is more reasonable, I believe in God with my everything. These big ideas show that God almost certainly does exist.